I'm reading today from Chapter 8, The Homeward Stove. Hello and welcome back to Riverwood Cabin. I'm reading today from Chapter 8, The Homeward Stove. By the time Dad and the boys arrived home, the floodwaters had mostly receded. The black paddock looked dirty and debris hung along the fence line, but the island only had half a metre of water sitting around it. It wasn't until they looked at the video footage of the storm that Dad and the boys realised just how bad it had been. "Whoa!" gasped Sam and Jake as they saw the rushing muddy water. "And to think we missed it all." Dad ran his fingers through his hair. "What a shame. I would have given anything to have been here and seen just how high the water reached." "Well, I went out at the height of the storm and took plenty of photos," said Mum, "especially all around our house site. The water completely covered the meadow, but it stayed a good couple of metres lower than where we're planning to build. Good to know." "Good on you, Rose," said Dad. "I can't imagine another 100-year storm hitting us for a very long time. I'd say we can feel pretty confident that we'll be safe if we build there." He looked out the window. "Oh, by the way, did you hear the news? Yesterday afternoon, one of our neighbours tried to drive her new four-wheel drive through the floodwater that was racing across the road down by the bridge. She got halfway across, then the water picked up her vehicle as if it was a twig and carried it right off the road and into the ditch. The car slammed against a tree and water pounded against the door on the other side. She couldn't open any of the doors. When the water began pouring inside, she thought she was going to die, trapped in her car. Luckily, she managed to open the boot and climb out onto the roof. It was quite a rescue mission to get her safely out of there. But she lost her brand new four-wheel drive. Dad looked around at all the kids who had gone quiet. Just as well Mum had the sense not to try driving through it, eh, kids? Nobody said anything, not even Mum. Dad studied their faces for a moment and then said, "Now, come outside and see what I've got." There on the trailer was a large clawfoot bath. One side of it was painted a deep crimson colour and looked very smart. The other side had no paint at all and looked somewhat scrappy. But inside, the enamel was clean and unchipped. Dad and Josiah unloaded it and sat it on the grass. Mum immediately climbed in and laid back and closed her eyes. Imagine it. A steaming hot bath by candlelight. No more trips up the road for showers. "Well, don't jump the gun," laughed Dad. "We've got to organise the hot water first." "But—" Mum's eyes flashed open. "But what?" Dad grinned at her. "Well, I got a call from Dave, and he said he's going to fit the homeward stove tomorrow." Mum shrieked with delight and leapt out of the bath. Uncle Dave was Auntie Penny's clever husband, who had designed a wonderful double-burning cast-iron wood stove. "Chris, think of it. We can cook on it, heat our hot water, and keep warm in winter. Oh, I'll never be able to sleep tonight." "I can't imagine that," joked Dad. He was the one who often lay awake at night, thinking, not Mum. The next morning dawned fine and clear, although the air still had a watery feel to it. Mum bustled about the kitchen, moving things and sweeping. Dad nailed some long, tall pieces of tin up on the wooden wall where the homeward stove was going to go. Millie watched Mum jittering around, waiting for Uncle Dave to arrive. "You're just like a little kid," she laughed. Finally he arrived. All the children watched as Dad and Uncle Dave slowly manoeuvred the heavy stove off the trailer and across the lino, using long bits of thick timber as runners and steel pipes as rollers. It weighed around 400 kilograms. Mum clapped her hands excitedly when it reached its final resting place. Josiah held the ladder steady while Dad worked at securing the flue. Now, to get the best from your homewood, you have to learn how to light and maintain a good fire, instructed Uncle Dave. It's important to use plenty of dry, quick-burning wood when you start it. If you don't get a good fire going before you load it with big logs, it'll struggle and won't burn properly. All your dry macrocarpa will be great, and so will the dry gum. Once you've got a clean, hot fire burning, you'll only need to add large logs every now and then. They'll burn really well on a good bed of embers. Millie glanced over at Mum. She looked as if she wanted to nudge Uncle Dave aside and just get started straight away, never mind the lesson. It's easy to regulate with the airflows, continued Uncle Dave, ignoring Mum's fidgeting. But it'll take a bit of practice to get your cooking sorted. The smaller oven burns at about 3/4 of the temperature of the large top oven, so you can use that for casseroles and desserts. Finally, the lesson was over, and everyone stood around and watched Mum light it for the first time. "A piece of cake," she boasted. "I love being able to see the fire through the glass in the fire door," said Kate. "It looks so homely." She was as excited as Mum about the homewood. She couldn't wait to try cooking something. Josiah hammered nails into the wall behind the wood stove, and Kate hung all Mum's pots and pans in a shiny row, from biggest to littlest. "It'll be a few days before we get the wetback set up," Dad said, "but until then we can use the big preserving pots and heat up water that way. Baths tonight." That night, the family sat around the fire for the first big roast dinner in a long time. The fire crackled happily in the homewood. Candles flickered warmly on the table, and the smell of fresh bread filled the barn. "We are blessed," said Mum. "Amen to that," agreed Dad. And then they all bowed their heads as he gave thanks for the meal.